Happy New Year, boss. Happy New Year.
Welcome back to my official podcast. This is Gaurav, and first of all, Happy New Year, guys, to everyone wherever you are living currently right now, and whatever the time it is. Mostly everywhere it is being 1 January right now, and obviously once again Happy New Year. And for New Year, for I think I have obviously invited the one of my biggest guests right now in my YouTube channel, probably, but I'm becoming nervous right from the start, but we'll definitely try to catch it on later on. So, Bharat Sundaresan, sir, where should I start from? He's obviously a writer of a book called The Belief, which is recently launched 3 or 4 months ago. And he works for Cricket Buzz, he works for a podcast channel, and he does a lot of things. So it will take a lot of time to introduce him. Bharat sir, welcome to the show, sir.
Oh, no, thank you, Gaurav, for having me on and also for your very, very kind welcome. I must start by saying I'm very, very sorry. I know you've asked me to come on your show quite a few times, but every time it's just that timings haven't worked out. But here I am in Sydney, and I just thought this will be the best chance. Like you said, fresh start to the year, and finally our timings are matched, and here I am. So let's do this.
Yes, and finally I got to leave on New Year, so I thought this is the best time to have a show with you. So and sir, please sir, don't embarrass me by saying sorry on the live show, man. Okay,
No, no, I am sorry.
let's start. No, sir. It's my pleasure, sir. For me, it was the biggest thing that you haven't said no to me any point of time. You just told me to wait, Gaurav, that I will definitely come to your show, and you said me that I will giving you my word, pakka. So I was waiting patiently. So you don't need to say sorry and all. So first of all, Bharat sir, I need to start. I will definitely ask a lot of questions on related to cricket, but first of all, I need to ask about your journey. How all the things started. You were living. I know you have started from Mumbai. Now you are currently staying in Australia. How all the things started? How you involved in cricket, and what has been journey so far for you? So if you can explain, so that will be good. Bharat sir,
Oh,
go
for
ahead.
sure. No, no. I mean, yeah, you're right. I'm from Mumbai, originally born and brought up in Ghatkopar. I always say Ghatkopar ahead of Mumbai. I'm very proud to be from there. And when people ask me or refer to me as an NRI these days, I say, no, I'm NRG. I'm a national or a resident of Ghatkopar first. So, no, that's where I'm from. Born and brought up there. Played cricket like every most other Indian kids. I was okay, but I wasn't very good. I guess not good enough to play cricket at any high level. But cricket journalism was not something that I planned at all. It happened completely by chance. Uh, went through the normal route. Like I said, play cricket, go to school, go to college, do all that. But then around say 2003 or four, I started. We started our own heavy metal band, and I started growing my hair around that time, so the hair has become like a part of my journey. A lot of people think it's for fashion or it's for that different reasons. It's not. It's just been a part of my journey, like you described. All the ups and downs that I have seen in life, it's been with me, thankfully, fingers crossed. So that's why I never give up on it, and I always talk about it. I love to talk about what it's meant to me, because I think, like cricket, it kind of I don't know how to put it. It kept me grounded in a strange way. You wouldn't hear most people talk about their hair in this fashion, but it has meant a lot to me, because uh, in that early 2000 phase, I did kind of lose my way. And without getting into too much details, I was doing a lot of things I shouldn't have been doing. But like I said, I was a young teenager who lost his way. But thankfully, I kind of I wouldn't say fixed my life, but life gave me another opportunity to do something, and that's where cricket was very important. So even through the dark times, cricket always kept me grounded, because I was always that guy who knew a lot about cricket. So whether it was within my family or my friend circle or school or college, wherever I went, people always came to Bharat because they always felt that he'd have that little bit of extra information on cricket, and it did mean a lot to me, West Indies cricket in particular. So it was this weird thing, because I loved West Indies cricket so much, despite them losing throughout the 90s. So I became a fan around the time their that mighty run finished. So it's kind of ironic. Don't blame me, but I guess you could in a way. But like, yeah, so every time West Indies did well, it was weird. Like people would come and congratulate me as if I've done something. So it played a huge role, cricket, in keeping me grounded. And I always say it kept me alive as well. There were some really, really dark days around 2006-7, that phase. But then, at some point, I decided like we have to do something with my life. So somebody suggested journalism, and I said, okay, fine. I needed a break from Bombay at that point. So I went to Chennai, did a journalism course for 10 months, met my now wife there. So that was the best thing that happened to me. I didn't learn much about journalism. And then soon after, I was very lucky to get a job with the Indian Express, and I worked for them for around 10 and a half years. I had an incredible boss in Sandeep Dwivedi, who was my boss from day one to my last day there, who's still the national sports editor there. So I learned a lot about the industry from him, about how to go about everything, about finding stories, writing stories, all of that from him. So I learned most of it on the job. But I think at some deep level, I was always a storyteller. I always loved telling stories, even as a child. Some true, mostly like made up. But so thankfully that has changed now, I would like to believe. So that's how journalism happened. And then, 10 and a half years I spent with the Indian Express, following the Indian team around the world. Ended up writing a book on Dhoni, the Dhoni Touch, as it was called. And then, then my wife moved to Adelaide before I did. She came here to study 5 years ago. And then once she came here and finished her master's and got a job, she was kind enough to say, okay, you know what, we've lived apart for 20 months, but I think I still want you to come here and stay with me. So, so fingers crossed. She wanted me to come. No, I'm just kidding. She got the job, and then I decided I have to move, and that's when I joined Cricket Buzz. And here we are, 3.5 years later, sitting. I'm here in Sydney, having covered the first three matches of a very, very one-sided and a pretty, at some levels, pretty disappointing Ashes series.
Talking about the Ashes series, my mate has also arrived. Lucas, welcome to the show, mate. I think you are 7 minutes late. Okay, no issues. Lucas, Bharat sir has arrived, and you need to say something to him. He's also from Australia. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm aware that he's living in beautiful Sydney, where I wish I was near Bondi Beach, instead of stuck here in Adelaide. Sorry for the people of Adelaide if they're listening to this.
So one of them. So thanks for that, Lucas.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you can't complain me of bias then, because I've lived here all my life. So you know what it's damn like. Unless you're living near Henley Beach or Glenelg, I don't think you can compare anything to Sydney. So but I could be wrong. You could surprise me. But how are you, Bharat? How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Lucas. It's good to see you. Good to meet you. I just flew to Sydney this afternoon. So I was in Melbourne, of course, for the Boxing Day test. And then my wife and dog accompanied me. So we drove back to Adelaide yesterday. And here I am in a very bizarre Sydney. As you know, the cases, COVID cases are going through the roof. But despite that, there's a lot more freedom here. It's like, it's January 1st. Most shops are shut and all that. But people seem a lot more okay with the pandemic than they do in Adelaide, as you've realized, having been stuck there, as you said.
I know all too well, especially when I have to catch public transport to play cricket myself. And when it gets on those very hot days, sometimes you just so. But I guess you have to live through it like everybody else does. Can't really complain. You can't do much about it. It's just the horrible time we're living at the moment. But it is a new year, so there is hope. And hopefully 2022 Gaurav and Bharat will be a whole lot better than 2021. Well, the life anyway. The cricket was really good in 2021, especially if you're an Australian fan winning the Ashes in 20 days. That was very pleasing for me.
And what about the Border Gavaskar Trophy?
Yeah, the Border Gavaskar Trophy. Well, it's 2021. It's not 2019 or 20 or 18. So hopefully, I can see us winning in India. Before I have to go past life. It's been 2005 since we won a series in Asia. So that's when I was about 10 years old. So I would like to see one before I get old. Really nice. We can start with Pakistan, and then hopefully with India, at least win a Test match. That would be great. So with Pakistan, I expect us to win. That's a must win for us. I'm sick of losing outside of Australia. As far as I'm concerned, it's over now. That part's over now. That pain is over. Time to beat Pakistan.
Hopefully once Australia tour to India, team pain will be back. We'll definitely discuss about the Australian cricket, Bharat sir. Once you are talking about your journey. Not. You have started your journey with the Indian Express, and now you are being the podcaster and broadcaster. And just wanted to let you know that we are also in the same scenario. The one Indian guy and one Aussie guy hosting the podcast channel. I hope you are aware about this.
I can see that. I mean, Indians and Australians do come together a lot when it comes to cricket, I think. And it's the same here as well. I think even though the Ashes gets hyped up a lot, India seem to perform much better in Australia than England. I mean, those series seem to be a lot more competitive. And like I was on some TV show the other day, and I said maybe the time has come for Australia to play the Ashes at home with some other country. Maybe India is the best choice for that. Yeah. Like, keep England away. Yeah, I can play the Ashes in England, but don't call it that when they come here.
Okay, so let's start with the Indian cricket, Bharat sir. Obviously, and I haven't discussed a single point of time about this topic, but I really wanted to discuss with you. So, with this captaincy issue going on with a very long period of time in this Indian team in the wide ball format, how do you see this kind of a situation right now in Indian cricket? Was it right to remove from Virat Kohli? What is your take on all this situation? Was it handled in a proper way, or could have been handled in a proper way? What's your take on the whole situation about this Virat Kohli ODI captaincy and all this? Bharat sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, change of power is never handled well in India. It's a cultural thing for us. Nobody in power likes to move on. And if people who take decisions think that someone's time has come for him or her to move on, they handle it very badly, as we've seen here. The communication is always a problem at the top in India. I'm not just talking about cricket. Anywhere you go, people are almost wary of telling someone that, look, maybe it's time for a change. Instead, other routes get taken, and then it becomes a he said, she said situation, which is exactly what has happened with the Virat Kohli things. I'm not very surprised at all. You just look back in time with Indian cricket, very few captains have gone quietly. There's always been this issue of I'll put the ball in your court, you take a decision for me, or I'll take it, like MS Dhoni in 2014 in Melbourne, just mid-series takes a call on his Test career, that was him making a statement. This is Virat Kohli making a statement, and not surprisingly, it has divided Indian cricket, and that'll happen for a while. But if, say, India do win this Test series in South Africa, watch out. I mean, things will be kind of swept away. But it'll be interesting to see now. India have another new ODI captain. I see KL Rahul, because Rohit Sharma is injured. So, but for me, the most exciting part though was Jasprit Bumrah becoming vice captain, even if it is for a series. I had predicted many years ago that he will become India captain. So hopefully we are on the right path there. We have Pat Cummins captaining Australia here. So yeah, more power to the fast bowlers leading their countries. But look, that's how it'll always be in India. I don't see. Whenever it's time for, if it's Rohit Sharma, the next one captain, to be moved on in a couple of years, it's not going to be smooth. These handovers are never smooth, and we haven't heard the last of this Virat Kohli story. There'll be more that'll come out in the next few months for sure.
Just wanted to ask you, sir, was it on the cards once Virat Kohli has left the T20 captaincy before the T20 World Cup? Was it on the cards? Because the selector were very keen, and the Chetan Sharma sir, as rightly said, I think yesterday in the press conference, that they wanted, all the 5 selectors wanted set one captain for a white ball format. So was it on the card once Virat Kohli left the ODI T20 captaincy? Bharat, so go ahead.
Yeah, no, of course it was on the cards that they would move on from him. The way I looked at it was, and I remember tweeting about this when this ODI captaincy thing happened. It's like with the T20 captaincy, Virat Kohli took a decision that the selectors maybe should have taken, and here they have taken a decision for him by moving on from him as ODI captain. So yeah, I mean it would be strange to have like two captains for two different white ball formats. There aren't too many teams that do have it. Sri Lanka have unfortunately been in that position where they've had to do that. West Indies a couple of times have been in that position where they've had Holder captaining the one day side, and I think Carlos Brathwaite was the T20 captain. So yeah, I mean, but in a country like India with with the system the way it is, that was never going to work. So that was just, I thought it was Virat Kohli just rolling the ball into their court, saying, "Look, I'll quit T20 captaincy. Let's see what you do with the ODI captaincy." And as expected, so now, going back to what I said, this handover of power, it does lead to controversy because there's no proper communication, right? Everything is left in the air. I mean, look at it happens every day in our households as well. Like, we are not the best communicators. I don't know whether Lucas knows about this, but that's how we are. It's a lot more direct in a country like Australia. If they're moving on from you, they'll let you know. It won't be sly, or it won't be it won't be just lost in translation somewhere.
No.
Okay, sir. Before you said that once the power changes, it become slightly difficult. But I hope you remember this. Once the Supreme Court committee was there, so Virat Kohli had all the power to choose the team which he wanted, the coach he wanted. Okay, so you also can see that he was also in the power once Supreme Court committee was there in the Indian cricket team. Bharat, so go ahead.
Oh, no. I mean, the Indian captain has always been in power, even before the Supreme Court came into the picture. You take every Indian captain, whether it's Tendulkar or even going back before his time, the Indian captain holds a lot of power because Indian cricket works differently to cricket in any other country. Because the BCCI, as you well know, is its own body. It doesn't come under the government, or it's so. If you are Indian captain, you do have all the power you want in Indian cricket. And there are clashes that happen only if you and the BCCI president do not get along, which has happened not very often. Now, of course, as we see, they're singing two different tunes right now. That's why we're hearing about all this argy-bargy, as they say in Australia, or they love to say in Australia. But you look at MS Dhoni, he got his way everywhere. I mean, when Srinivasan was president, as you well know, when other selectors wanted to get rid of him as captain after losing 4-0 in England and 4-0 in Australia, Srinivasan said, no, he will stay captain. So, that has never been any different back in the day. It's just that with Virat Kohli, it felt like he had more power. And I think that really comes down to the world we are in, because there's just so much more exposure, right? There's social media, and there's just so much more of that. So back in the 90s, whether the captain was in power or not, you had to depend on a couple of pieces in a newspaper. Now it's just everywhere, right? So it becomes, and that's the same with everything. I mean, when we were growing up in India in the 90s, Sachin Tendulkar was big, but he didn't seem as big as Virat Kohli does now. Does that mean that Virat Kohli is bigger than him? No, I mean, it's just that there's more exposure. You just know more about Virat Kohli, what he's doing, where he's going with and spending time on holiday with his wife or whatever it is. So it's just different. And I think that it's more than than just a case of Virat Kohli being more powerful than anyone else.
Okay, one more question regarding on the same topic. It all started when Saurav Ganguly made a comment on the public that he did told Virat Kohli not to obviously leave the T20 captaincy. And after some days, once Virat Kohli attended the press conference, he said his captaincy was once he left the captaincy, his captaincy was taken in a positive way. So it all started. So my point is, I know what people were expecting. Once Saurav Ganguly made a statement, I clearly understand that he's lying. Obviously, people BCCI will not clearly say whatever it is happening in the back door, isn't it? So why this is hype is creating, and why this discussion has been creating a lot of hype in this India? Bharat sir, go ahead.
Look, I mean, I wouldn't go and say this guy's lying or that guy's lying. but it's just a different setup right now in Indian cricket. Like back in the day, when you had like non-cricketers as BCCI presidents, they were more diplomatic. They would not say much. Like, a couple of my journalist friends who report a lot on the BCCI like to say these days, like back in the day, you would get a news story from somewhere like, lower down in the rank in the BCCI, and you would want to get a clarification from someone higher up. Now, because Ganguly is so outspoken, he goes and gives interviews everywhere, and he always is quoted. It's that the president gives a quote, and then you have to look like underneath somewhere to find someone who will kind of clarify whether whatever the president is saying is true or not. So I think that has changed, and as a result of that, and going back to the whole scenario with Virat Kohli and where it is right now. Right now, it looks like everything is in Virat Kohli's favor, because he comes across or he has come across in this story as being a victim of sorts, like, not being treated well after everything he's done for cricket. But and this is classic Indian cricket, that narrative will change in a couple of months' time when, say, there will be some story about no, Virat Kohli flexed his muscle, so suddenly Ganguly will become the hero. That's just the beauty of Indian cricket, and the drama. That's why I've always said, when people talk about the team and talk about them becoming indomitable and this great team that will win everywhere, that will never happen in Indian cricket. And the reason for that is Indian cricket really thrives on this drama, ups and downs. Because I've covered tours where India would win everything, and you could see by the end of that tour, the interest was waning back in India. Like Indian cricket needs that. Like, you needed like the win in Australia to be followed with this. I'm not saying it happens. It happens by chance, but that's just how it is. After that heroic win in Australia and then beating England and all that, you needed something like the T20 World Cup, early exit, and you're down again. And now it will rise again if they'll win in South Africa, it looks like. But next year there will be a drop. That's just how Indian cricket works.
Lucas, you want to ask something about the captaincy issue?
No, not the captaincy issue per se, but Bharat mentioned that popularity of players in the 90s compared to players today. You play a tour game in the 90s. You don't have Twitter wasn't invented. You had Windows 98 or 97, whatever it was called back then. You didn't have Snapchat, Instagram, whatever you want to call it these days, Facebook. They'd play one tour. So let's say India went to West Indies, they won there. You wouldn't hear from them until they played the next game. It's completely different in this generation, because they'd post on Twitter. Kohli likes to post Instagram photos with his wife for vacation, as you just mentioned, Barrett. So back then, obviously you're right. That doesn't make Virat Kohli more popular than he would have been in that era. It's just that there's better technology to follow your favorite cricketer in today's age than it was back then. And that's not Virat Kohli's fault. It's not Sachin Tendulkar's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just that technology improves over time. Life improves over time. Society builds over time. And, in the future, there's going to be even more people that are going to be invested with social media to follow their own favorite cricket superstars. So what is your take on cricketers on social media and spreading their lifestyle, their whatever they feel comfortable? What is your position on that, Bharat?
Oh no, I mean, look, like you said, there are pros and cons to it. It's made them more accessible, right? Back in the day, the cricketers, or not just cricketers, any celebrity, they had a little more aura about them. There was more intrigue about them because you didn't know much about them.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Because you had to depend on, say, gossip columns or like long features written by journalists from that era to know that little bit more about him or her. Like, I mean, we knew about Sachin Tendulkar being a fan of Dire Straits or Pink Floyd only because someone asked him in an interview. Like these days, you know everything about everyone, right? Like, you just need to go onto my Twitter profile and read a few tweets. You'll know everything about me. The same with Gaurav, the same with you. Like, you people just know more about each other. Or there are some who try to keep it on the low, but so there's accessibility there. There's more exposure. As a result, the fan just feels more connected with these guys. But the con there is, then I always tell people, if you live by social media, you will die by social media. So it's about how much you take the stuff that comes there seriously, right? Both the good and the bad. If I know cricketers around the world who take social media very seriously, they feel down, they'll reply to tweets from random people. If they've had a bad day, they will go and check Twitter to see what people are saying. At the same time, there are other cricketers who just use it very smartly as a marketing tool, right? Marketing themselves, like, Virat Kohli or the really high profile guys generally use it as a marketing tool. Like, spread the word about your brand and all the brands that sponsor you. Like there are, for example, Instagram, there are cricketers around the world who you'd see post a lot on Instagram, and they don't do it because they want to, but it's because they have to, because that's the commitment they've made to their respective brand. So it's a very different world there. So if you use it in that sense, and it just doesn't just it's just not about cricketers, even like you and me, like, how you use social media. If you just use it as time pass, it's fine. And, you don't take anyone seriously. Like, look, as a journalist, because I write on cricket and I'm from India and all that, you do get criticized a lot. People will say a lot of things to you. I mean, do I sit there and reply to all of them? Not really. At times you do feel like, okay, I mean, that hurt, but that's all right. I mean, you move on. It's just, there is no accountability on social media, so anyone can say anything. But still, again, there are cricketers who do get really affected. Not just cricketers, celebrities. Like, you see here with the footy guys here, whether it's AFL or NRL. I mean, they face so much more than what cricketers do. Especially if you're a person of color, the kind of garbage that you have to listen to, as we know, it's not easy. It does bring you down, I'm sure, but it's about how you react. So I think it's got a flip side as well. But if you use it well, like a lot of these guys do, it's a great thing. And going ahead, the people who will be affected most are people like me, like, journalists who suddenly, like I said, back in the 90s, for like Gaurav to know something about Tendulkar, he needed me. These days he doesn't. Like, he can just check his profile, and all of them, like last year during the lockdown, Virat Kohli is interviewing AB de Villiers, and AB de Villiers is interviewing Chris Gale and all that. So the middleman in many ways has been eliminated. So it's us who are under pressure. Apart from that, I think it's all good.
Well, when you were working in the 90s as a journalist, did you?
I wasn't that old. I'm not that old.
Okay.
Hey, I'm just 36 years old, man.
Oh, okay. He's just giving me an example. Okay. I think. Well, actually, you've just mentioned that social media gives out a lot of information. Maybe I should have checked that before saying that comment. So there you go. I think your comment of live by social media, die by social media is correct.
By the way, I'm shocked that you would think I was a journalist in the 90s.
Well, the way you talk so beautifully about it, it seems like you knew what the hell you were talking about. So I just my mindset was thought, gee, I might as well ask him a 90s question. So I'll take that back very quickly. Never mind.
Okay. Bharat, again, let's move to the Indian cricket again. Our focus has been with the Indian cricket, and we'll definitely discuss later on about the pouring ashes, right? Isn't it, Lucas? So we'll definitely want to again move forward to the Indian cricket. Again, I want to ask about this ICC tournament early exit or the final we lose in the big stages. So what's your take on that? Why being the team that we have currently right now, I think we can beat any team by any day. So what is going wrong in the ICC tournament? What is going wrong in the big stages on the big days? So Bharat sir, go ahead.
I mean, it's one of those things, like, I don't think anything is going wrong. I mean, it's not, because they are getting into semi-final. Okay, this T20 World Cup that just happened was an aberration, right? Like, I think with that, what happened basically was, I thought India picked the right squad finally for T20 cricket. I think they were playing T20 international cricket for a long time, like the way England were playing 50-over cricket before 2015. They were just picking their best one-day cricketers, 50-over cricketers, and banking on them to do well in T20 cricket. But this year they were smarter with their selections. I thought they picked the right players, or the last year World Cup. But they go into the tournament, first two matches against the big teams, Pakistan, New Zealand. They kind of go back to their old school of cricket, or T20 cricket, like, which is more conservative. And I think they paid for it as a result. And Pakistan and New Zealand both played really, really good cricket. No wonder they went. And they were the better teams in that group. As the tournament progressed, you figured it out. But other ICC tournaments, they reached the 2019 semi-final. I was there, and I remember that semi-final. It's just one of those things, right? The conditions changed when India had to bat, and they were just custom made for New Zealand. And New Zealand was just the better team on that day. And if you go back in time, and South Africa were always a great team in 50-over cricket. but they always lost in the semis, or they never even got to the finals. I know they were called chokers and all that, but I think it's just a question of that. I don't really think it comes down to they lose heart that on that day, or they're not tough enough and all that. I just don't believe in that logic. But having said that, if you look at the other side of the coin, what Australia proved is they just have that winning mentality. I mean, it's just a very different culture here, which I'm sure Lucas will tell you. Like, they play sport very differently to the way we play sport, or Indians play sport. So I think that has a lot to do with why they win so many tournaments. They are a very tournament based team, or Australia, unlike in India. So India will win the occasional tournament like they have in the past, but it's just a different approach to how you play. So hopefully now that we're banking on all these IPL players to do well in T20 cricket. Hopefully that comes through, because you're talking about guys who are fearless, who have won IPL tournaments, whether they have played for India or not. So those are the kind of guys you need in an ICC tournament. And we have a tournament, World Cup coming up in a few months here in Australia, if the world goes back to some sort of normalcy. And I think India will do much better than they have in the past. But if they pick the IPL players, they've started doing these days.
Well, Bharat, you just said that India were guilty of picking their 50 over team in the T20 team. That's a little bit opposite for Australia. In previous World Cup T20s, they'd pick their B string bowlers like Nathan Corder-Nile, B string batters. But this year they seem to were sick of it. They said, what, we're gonna use our main squad, which incidentally was the Test squad, without Nathan Lyon. Their bowling is basically the Test squad in that World Cup, except for Nathan Lyon. So they thought, well, we're going to do it with them. We're sick of using B stringers. That's not working. So we might as well. Our players are playing the IPL there, so we might as well play the T20 Cup World there. In contrast, they actually won it, by using a full strength team, and a full strength team that's not really used to playing T20 World Cup. Mitchell Starc did not play IPL this year, or sorry, last year technically. Steve Smith hardly plays any T20, whether it's World Cup or friendly or like series matches ever. Hardly plays it. Same with David Warner. Hazelwood hardly plays it. He plays IPL. David Warner plays IPL. Cummins plays IPL. But they hardly play it as a squad, as an actual squad. There wouldn't be that many games that they've actually played T20 together, and they actually won the tournament. And I found that amazingly, and everyone's saying, oh yeah, they can't win it, because it's basically a test team. Yes, they have proper T20 batters like Glenn Maxwell there, Ashton Agar there, but not many people picked Australia. They went unnoticed in that team, and they came and surprised everybody by winning that World Cup, because they weren't really a favourite because of their attitude towards the T20 World Cup in previous years.
Yeah, and you said not many people gave them a chance. If you were listening to SEN throughout the World Cup or even before it, you would have heard one non-Australian sounding, maybe, I don't know, voice tell you that Australia was going to make it through to the semi-finals, and that was my wonderful voice. So I did pick them to go through. Because I thought, like with India, and their selections, I thought Australia did the right thing by just going with their best players. And the reason for that is, in the past, they picked guys who did well in the BBL, especially. But it tells you a lot. There is a huge gap between the quality of the BBL and the IPL, and it's just a fact of life. And there are many reasons for that. And if we get into it, it'll just go on forever. You don't have the international quality in the Big Bash League. It's entertaining in its own space, but as we've seen, a lot of guys who come through that system and tried playing international cricket have struggled to start with. I mean, you look at Darcy Short or Josh Philippe in recent times. A lot of these
Chris
bowlers
Lynn,
from there, they have struggled to make that, and that just tells you there's a big gap between BBL and international cricket. Compare that to some of the guys who come straight from the IPL in Indian cricket and play international cricket, because they get to rub shoulders with the who's who, and because they play in front of 60,000, 70,000 people under that pressure, where they are facing a Josh Hazelwood, where they are facing a Khagi Surabada and hitting them for boundaries and all that. It's just a different pathway into international cricket. You just feel like you belong. I've faced these guys before, but you put a Darcy Short or Josh Philippe in there, they're like, okay, I'm used to facing more local bowlers in many ways, right? So I think that's where there is a big chasm, and so Australia just said, you know what, we'll go with what we know, and it just worked out. I mean, they just played their best cricket, and Josh Hazelwood learnt a lot from playing in the IPL. I think it was his T20 bowling this year was a huge plus for Australia, which we won't talk about now that the Ashes have been won, but but I think that was one of the big high points for them in 2021. So the guys who do go and play in the IPL, the Australians get that exposure. Otherwise, it's just their best players, and they just came good.
Do you believe that if the T20 World Cup was played in a different continent like South Africa, and the IPL was played in the UAE, do you believe that Australia would have picked their full team, or was it just coincidence that the IPL, the World Cup was in the same country? You might as well play him in the World Cup. Do you? What's your opinion on that?
No, I think. Look, I mean, I still think they would have gone with the same squad. I think Australia, George Bailey and co, the new committee, or was it what? Yeah, George Bailey was part of it. They just decided that look, and Justin Langer in particular. I mean, he had come from that Perth Scorchers mentality in T20 cricket, where they did win BBL titles under him. And it was a very similar setup to what he used in this T20 World Cup. People did criticize him when he went in with that setup and that mindset into the World Cup, but it worked out. So I think regardless of where they would have played, Australia just decided that we're going to go with Cummins, Stark, Hazelwood. And Zampa again, was for me the player of the tournament, even though it eventually went to David Warner.
Yeah, he is very underrated in white ball cricket. He doesn't play a lot of Sheffield Shield. He hardly plays any Sheffield Shield since leaving South Australia. Exactly. But his white ball form he's a very good white ball bowler, whether it's T20 or one day, a very underrated out of Zampa.
Yeah, and getting better by the day. So I think, so they just picked their best players and said, and another one who came good, not many gave him a chance, was Matthew Wade. And I think, Matthew Wade has been like a unsung star for Australia in the last 2 years. Even though he's lost his test spot, he did everything that was asked of him. Open in test cricket, he said yes. I mean, he said bat in the middle order. He said yes. Open in T20 cricket, he said yes. Captain the side, he said okay. So I think he really deserved whatever came his way towards the end for being the ultimate team man.
And Mitchell Marsh, another one that's been forgotten. Dropped so many times, but was given a chance on World Cup, and boy, he was arguably Australia's best white ball player. Probably in this team. He came from absolutely nowhere. Had a fantastic tour of the West Indies, the white ball tour. And based on that form, he got picked, and he repaid him very nicely, Mitchell Marsh. And a player like Mitchell Marsh has been smashed. He's almost like Australia's whipping boy, same with his brother Shaw Marsh at Perth. If anything goes wrong, those two boys or men are literally the first ones you blame. So I was very happy with Mitchell Marsh's success on that regard, because finally the social media people can stop getting on his back, and he's done something worthwhile in his career.
I mean, that clip that did go viral, it was funny. I had asked him that question at the Oval in 2019 about how he divides opinions. Like neither Mitch Marsh nor I thought at that point that 2 years later, that clip will do the rounds again. I think it was one of the sweetest answers I've ever heard from a cricketer. But he speaks about most of Australia hates me. So he did get them to come around onto his side. So there you go. Yeah, it took 2.5 years though.
We're better late than never.
Okay. Again, let's move to Indian cricket again. I wanted to ask about the series which is going on, India versus South Africa, but we'll do this later. But I wanted to have a discussion on MS Dhoni. Okay, because he is my favorite cricketer. He has been the inspiration for me for a very long period of time. I have been watching cricket. I've started watching cricket just because of him. Once he started playing cricket, and after that, he has been the inspiration for me for a long period of time. You have also written the book about the MS Dhoni. So just wanted to know about if you share any of his story which you had a chat with him, and the story which you want to share with us, that will be great, because I am also from a Jharkhand boy, currently living in Mumbai. Go ahead, Bharat, sir.
Oh, right. Oh, beautiful. That's great. No, I mean, he was an enigma. So when Penguin approached me to write that book, I was initially very reluctant because that's when the movie was coming out that same year. But then they said like, okay, if you had to write, what would you write? And I said, look, you guys always been this enigma in my book, so I'll maybe try to unravel the enigma. And I didn't think they would buy into it, but they did. And then so that's how the whole book journey began. And when I did tell him that I'm writing this book, I mean, we've known each other for a few years by then, like, me as journalist and him as cricketer, Indian captain. And he was also intrigued. He was like, okay, let's see what you're going to do. Like, because not too many people know me at all. So, so he was excited that, or he was impressed that I was taking up that challenge. So he was very helpful because he almost functions as like this, the people around him function as if like, they've signed that Omerta code. They don't talk till MS Dhoni like gives them the permission to talk about his life. So he opened a lot of doors for me once he realized that I was doing this. So I was flown to Ranchi, like met a few of his friends. I was taken care of very, very well in Ranchi. So wherever I went, people would tell me that, I was treated like some celebrity. They were like, every time Dhoni comes into someone's life, their life just changes. And it's going to happen to you as well. That's why I called the book The Dhoni Touch as well. Like, because more than anyone else, I heard it so many times in Ranchi. I was like, okay, maybe the Dhoni touch is going to fall on me. So I guess it has. But no, I mean, he is a fascinating human being. So we all know about his cricket and all that. And there are a lot of stories in that book. It's still up there on Amazon. So if you guys want to go buy it, it's cheap plug for the book, The Dhoni Touch.
Go buy if people watching this podcast, buy the book.
There you go. Brilliant. Yeah. So no, it's been doing really well. It's been nearly 4 years now since it was released, and now it's in Hindi as well. Thankfully, I have not contributed to the Hindi translation because my Hindi is I speak a very Bombay Hindi, and it does not count as Hindi in many people's books. So, but no, I mean, there's Dhoni, the cricketer, Dhoni, the great wicket keeper, Dhoni, the very interesting, unique captain. There's Dhoni, the army man. His interest in the military is very different to, like, it's not a very jingoistic, like, India should win every war kind of thing. Maybe that is there as well. But for him, he's almost a soldier who went on to play cricket. Like, like a lot of people around him told me, he wouldn't have minded if his life had taken him, in a place where he was a soldier. He was like, in the army and not a cricketer. But and so his interest is very different. It has a lot to do with the intricacies of like military operations and how they function. And that's why when he was given in an honorary rank in the Indian Army, he said that no, just wearing the jacket or the uniform's not enough. I need medals. So he's part of the parachute regiment. So he paratroopers, I think. Go read the book too for more clarifications. I've forgotten. So he did the 5 dives that you need to do to get medals, and he always carries his uniform wherever he goes. And his friends often ask him, like, you're during the IPL, where are you going to even get the chance? Why do you carry it? And but he always says is, what if I do? Like, what if I do get the chance? So that is his most cherished, cherished reward, or like that he's ever received in his life. That honor. And yeah, I mean that's how and you saw a lot of that with this cricket as well. It was all about delegation. It was all about how each person was given a role in that team, and they were just given that role and asked to perform that. There were no questions asked. So I remember one of the stories I do mention in the book is the first time he ever went to a military camp. So he was taken there as part of the Indian team, and Greg Chappell was coach, and he was a pretty junior cricketer. So apparently the first thing he did was he went and stood in the sentry post, because they say that in a military camp, the sentry post is generally given to a very junior officer or a very junior person in the and you are literally in charge of the camp's defense, because you're there at night, standing there in the sentry post, and you're expected to shoot at sight, like if you see something. And they say in the army that at night everything feels like it's moving. And he just wanted to experience that position, because at that point you can't wait for your captain's orders. Like, it's not that you can call someone and say, I am seeing something move, should I shoot at it? You just do it. So that's the kind of values he expected from his cricketers when he became captain, that if you think this is right, go ahead and do it. Like, and you saw it so many times as captain. You'd give the ball to Joginder Sharma in a T20 World Cup final, or back someone that you wouldn't think you would back in a tough situation. So I think that just summed up the man. There's just one part of him. There's a lot more which is fascinating about MS Dhoni. And yeah, I mean, that it was a fun journey. It was a fun experience writing that book because he's so interesting.
And we saw MS Dhoni, bring in his military style, with the caps. What was your personal take of bringing that outside influence into the cricket field? What did you like it? Did you hate it? What was your opinion on that?
Look, I mean, without getting very political about it,
I
wasn't
of course.
sure how it would be taken, because and the reason why he would have done that, and like he ever since he's got closer and closer to people, actual soldiers who do fight on the front. He does do a lot for them, financially. He does a lot behind the scenes. Often you wouldn't hear much about it, but the whole concept of wearing stuff. I mean, the fact that his kit bag I've had army fatigue prints, and his clothes, he always wears army fatigues when he's not playing cricket. And the reason he does that, he always says, is because or he'll have like an airborne shirt or like stuff which has something about the army, and that's his way of spreading the word. His logic is, if I wear something like that, people will ask me why, and that gives me a chance to talk about why, and what the army does and what the military does and all that. So I think that kind of got extended, like as you said, Lucas, when they wore it for one match or two matches or whatever it was. Now I think even the Chennai Super Kings jersey has a bit of it at some level. So I mean, it's one of those, like, I'm sure there will be people who will be like, does international sport need that, or does a sporting team need to represent that side of a country? I'm not sure. Like, I'm neither for nor against it. I'm sorry for being diplomatic, but it's one of those things. Like, but I'll just give you the reason why he does it. He just wants to spread
without getting too political. Now, I don't have the education of history like you guys do, but I personally, I had no problem with it. And after when he said about why he did it, I thought that was fair enough. But that's just my opinion, without getting too political. Maybe again, I don't understand things of what they are, but I didn't have a problem with it. It's, if he wants to promote his army stuff, as you've just said, pointed out, that he has a proud military career and he loves to show that. That's all fine and good by me. Gaurav.
Yeah. Let's move to the Indian South African series, sir. I know you have been also watching this series. So, what's your take on the India versus South Africa series? Also, is South Africa going? The South African cricket has been going through the transition period. Could you have ever imagined that Quinton de Kock will make a certain retirement from Test cricket as a 29-year-old guy, because he has been the guy who would have taken cricket South Africa forward, isn't it? And the series has been 1-0 up by India. Obviously, being an Indian, I've been liking all the things, because we haven't won a single series in South Africa, but we could have expected the little competition in that series. Bharat, sir, go ahead.
Well, there's a lot of things that are happening or have been happening in South African cricket, mostly bad. Whether it's their social justice, investigations that have been happening in the last 12 months, or like the issues with the board. There was a time last year where we felt that there will be no South African cricket briefly at a World Cup, because there was issues with the government trying to take over or being in a position to take over, and what that would mean at the ICC. So these things are going to happen when there's so much chaos happening behind the scenes in any sport, or why sport anywhere. In our families, it's very difficult for people then the team to perform really well, especially if it impacts them. I mean, it's different if like there's unrelated to cricket, there's something happening, it can like bring teams together or sporting teams together and they go out and perform and win. But here, this financial issue, there's issues of all sorts. So and Quinton de Kock, in the position he's in, under a lot of pressure, because him and a couple of others are the only ones who are really, like you said, in a position to take South African cricket forward. He has a young family. So, I mean, it's been a tough year for him as well, as we well know, for reasons that have been discussed enough by now. It is shocking for him to leave. I thought he was just hitting his peak at 29, and maybe this was the time for him to take the team forward. But another new issue for South Africa to deal with. It isn't a great team, but that does not take away away from what India are doing. India are just getting better and better at winning overseas. And again, going back to what we said about the T20 team, the guys coming in just feel so much like they belong. And it's a lot like seeing a Scott Boland at the MCG when you saw Shreyas Iyer debut in against New Zealand at home, or the way that a Shardul Thakur just comes in and performs, because they're seasoned guys. They know what it takes to be there. They've done put in all the hard yards, and so I think it's pleasing to see an Indian team win in South Africa. Like I tweeted right after that, back in the 90s, it still feels surreal to win in South Africa. Winning in Australia and England, I don't know, for some reason you kind of like, yeah, it can happen. But with South Africa, even though India started winning there a lot more consistently than they were in the past, it still feels a little strange. And everybody is backing them to go ahead and win the series. And why wouldn't you? I think it was an important win also because I think India didn't play their best cricket at all times. But despite that, they managed to win, which is very important for a team in this stage of its evolution. They'll only get better. Like they did against England, when they play really good cricket, they can be unstoppable. At Lords and at the Oval, so they dominated that series, and they look like they will dominate this series as well. But from a South African perspective, I don't know what's next. It's just looking scary for them.
Yeah, the sad thing about Quinton de Kock, as you mentioned, that he's 29, but you feel like he's been around for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
He feels like he's a veteran, because he came onto the scene very, very quickly, built his game around Adam Gilchrist, and everybody compared him, said, "Oh, he's the Gilchrist 2.0," and burst out of the scenes. And to retire, as you said, right in the middle of his peak. That's a very sad situation, that it's had to end this way with such a world class, probably once in a generation player, if you want to call him that, with the way he's aggressive, with his strike rate in Test cricket.
Yeah.
And to go away, 29 years of age is the most saddest thing about this. And it just goes to show you that no matter how good you are or how bad you are, you can't take it for granted. You have to expect the unexpected in life, and when it happens, yeah, it's very tragic. So it's just a wake up call to everybody that what, just because you're in the peak of your powers, which Quinton was, it doesn't mean that you're going to be around. And unfortunately, the way it's ended for him is very, very sad. Gaurav.
Yeah, go ahead, Lucas. You were saying something.
No, I'm just saying that on to you for your I was just okay. Backing up what Bharat said about Quinton de Kock, and that was my opinion on that. As I mentioned that with yesterday's show with Tim Lance, he said that it's also as what Bharat said, he's still very young. He wasn't 35. He feel like he's been around for 10, 15 years. And you just think, he's not 35, he's not 34, he's not 37, he's only 29. And like I said, that's the sad thing about this.
Okay, let's move to the Ashes. We'll definitely discuss and we'll try to wrap the show because we have taken a lot of time of Bharat. So let's the quality of cricket in the Ashes. I know Lucas won't mind the quality of England team, but especially once I talked about the Indian South African series also. It's not about the winning; it's about the quality. People watch Test cricket for the entertainment purpose. They want to show the fight between the bat and the balls. That has not been happening. So what is your take on that? And people are saying that this is the weakest England team that has arrived in Australia. So what's your take on that? Bharat, sir, go ahead.
Well, I mean, we've heard that before, that, about England teams, about how they can't bat, ball, or field when they've come to Australia. But after especially this Melbourne Test, it's tough to argue against it. Generally that gets said, and there'll be at least a couple of performers here and there, and who'll do something, and it wouldn't look that bad. But this is it. We shouldn't be surprised. It came at the end. I mean, this has come at the end of a terrible year for England in Test cricket, where they struggled to win at home, albeit against India and New Zealand, arguably the two best teams in the world right now. But they were struggling. They won that test against India and Chennai, and after that they've really come apart. And there are a lot of reasons that lead up to it. I think for me, it starts with priority. Like we spoke about South Africa, like what is their priority for the test team to be successful? And, if you want your test team to be successful, then you need to put certain measures in place, which England have not done since 2015, once their focus shifted completely onto white ball cricket. You see and we shouldn't be shocked that their batters are struggling. A lot of them average in the 20s. They struggle in county cricket because they are made to play on in the early half of the summer, especially April and May, when the ball's doing all sorts. When getting a 50 at times is a match-winning score, so they're not used to scoring the big hundreds and the double hundreds that, say, if you look here in Australia, Marcus Harris is, or Will Pukowski is, or so Travis Head is. Like, they are used to make 70. So 250 is a match-winning total, and that's the peak part of their county season. And then they enter the white ball stuff in June, and they only go back to county cricket by the time it's late August, by which time the test summer is almost over. And the pitches are now dry. The whole thing is about points, championship points, and batting points and bowling points. So if you don't prioritize it, this is what is going to happen. And speaking to a lot of these English journalists who are here, they say that England are just good enough to focus their energies on one format, or one kind of cricket, and which is like limited overs cricket, and they're doing really well there. Joe Root is a world-class talent, and he's batted like a world-class talent so far. Yes, he does have that tendency to open the face of the bat. And I've seen a lot of him in the nets in the last 5 weeks in Brisbane and Adelaide and Melbourne. He has been working on it, but look, I mean, that's only that much you can do when you have to carry the burden. You just look at Joe Root's face and you feel bad for him. He's carrying the weight of this team on his shoulders. The coaching staff have not been very supportive, clearly. I mean, some of the decisions that they take with selection or strategy and approach is baffling, right? Like, you go into a match with you brought a spinner along who's just not made for these conditions, but you just go to him in Brisbane, leave him out in Adelaide, bring him back in Melbourne. You don't know how to use him. Or in conditions with the pink ball, where the ball was doing a lot. If you pitched it full on day one, you kept bowling short, and you bowled 120, 130 overs, and you never changed. And then you have a captain coming and saying maybe we should have bowled fuller, but it's not his fault at some level. What was the coaching staff doing? Because in cricket, after 2 hours, you do get a break. You go back into the dressing room, so that's when you address those things. So it's just a lot of factors that have led to them being pretty shocking, and it's just gotten worse with time. I'm not complaining. I mean, my wife and dog accompanied me to Melbourne, so the game finished so early that we had enough time for me to be like a good family man as well. Even though then I did sneak out, took the dog towards the nest, which is what I do. But but it's just been it has been the most one-sided series I've covered in all these years that I've been a journalist. It's been, and according to locals, since the 90s that I've been covering, 30 years, this has been the most disappointing series I've seen, because there's been no fight. Like, I was telling someone this morning, even going into the day 3 of the MCG test, yes, there were 4 down. You think about these things often, like, as a journalist, you're like, yeah, what if this game is over by lunch? I remember getting into the lift at the MCG. There was some fan there as well, and he was like, oh, what do you reckon, mate? Like, done by lunch? I was like, haha, yeah. But then I thought, like, these things rarely happen. You say this, and there'll be like the Adelaide test on day 5, right? You find one guy who will dig in and like survive. There'll be a drop catch here or there. But the fact that they were blown away in like 45 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever it was on day 5, day 3, it just tells you everything you need to know about this England team. And look, they're here in Sydney as well. They've lost half their coaching staff. Adam Holyoke has been added to the coaching staff, so I don't know how things are going to shape up there. But yeah, it can't be easy being them, away from in this, especially coming to Sydney with 20,000 plus cases. People in your team are affected as well. It's just, I mean, I'm sure some of them can't wait for this to end in Hobart and for them to just go home.
Well, when people say this is the worst England team, I don't necessarily agree with that. Because I think it's their worst batting. But their bowling's still pretty good. It's not like Australia is making 500, 600 runs.
Exactly.
It's not like, I think only Labuschagne and Travis Head are the only ones that made 100. So it's not like you have 6, 7 players of making hundreds or double hundreds. Yes, David Warner should have made those 200, especially one up in Adelaide where he threw his wicket away very, very stupidly. Sorry, David, I love you, but you did. But it's not like these pitches are absolute roads like we've seen in the past, where scorers like previous Ashes teams, their bowling attacks would get belted by 500, 600 first innings runs. We're not seeing that. Their bowling is actually pretty good. It's just that batting is just absolutely pathetic outside of Joe Root. And even Joe Root has not found his form like he did early last year, against India in England, or India at home, or against Sri Lanka, he made 100 and that double 100 in India. And when you have a player that's a little bit out of form like Joe Root is, it really stands out. My God, they're just walking wickets. Hassi Hamid, I think he's a good player, but has low hands. He's low. His handwork gets exposed completely on these pitches because they can't play off the front foot. Ollie Pope is another one that gets exposed because he can't play on the front foot because of the bounce in these wickets. When they say it's the worst team, the batting is probably the worst it's been here, but their bowling is okay. It's like I said, it's pretty good. Like I said, Australia are not blowing them out by 500, 600 first innings runs. It's just that their batting is ridiculous. It's so poor. And Joe Root has not found his form that he was early in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you to an extent, Lucas, with their bowling, but it's good, but it's not good enough. Like, there's just a sameness to it. I mean, Jimmy Anderson was magical at the MCG and they held him down to 276. But in the first two tests, they had opportunities.
They did.
They had 6 for 190, but they let them make 400. They let Travis scored that 100. Again, in Adelaide, they had opportunities, but Australia made over 400. I think because, and the result, and the reason for that is it's just the sameness to this attack. Chris Woakes, lovely man, great, a great trick bowler in England. But he shouldn't. He does not perform any role in Australia. It's unfair to play him. And
he has no business playing in this tour. With all due respect, he has no business whatsoever.
Exactly. And the result is Ollie Robinson's good, but he's. I don't know. I mean, but he can't be leading the attack. Unfortunately, it's fallen on his shoulders, and and that's the problem. I think the bowling's good, but it's not good enough to blow them away. And that one match that on a very, very challenging pitch at the MCG, where Jimmy Anderson just bowled them into a position of where they could have made a match out of it. They just were blown away for 68. So it's just multiple factors that have resulted in this. We'll see. I mean, what they do in Sydney. As of now, I'm not giving them much of a chance, but maybe because the pressure is lifted. I mean, there's absolutely nothing to lose now. Maybe some of them will come good, but still, I would be surprised.
Well, like I said, England's your bowling attack can be the second coming of the '80s West Indies, but if your batting stinks up the joint, it's heartbreaking for the bowling unit. Because you can only play to what the batsmen give you to get you to play with, and automatically when England get absolutely rolled, the bowling lineup to say, oh, here we go again. We have to play absolutely out of our skins to even make it competitive, and you can't do that game in, game out, no matter who you are. No matter what bowler you are, no matter what team you are, you cannot do that. You're going to have bad days. And when you get no support from your batting lineup, it is so heartbreaking, and it takes a lot of work. And I have the belief in the Sheffield Shield bowlers work harder than what they do in the county, because of the hardness of the wickets. It's flat. In the county championship, you can just put it on a line and a length, let the pitch do the work. It's way easier to take wickets in the county than it is Sheffield Shield. And I think that England falls victim to that. They think, Ollie Robinson, who's been fantastic in England, we'll just bowl 125, 130. I have no problem with him bowling 120, 130. I think the criticism of that is a bit harsh. But we'll just bowl that, put it on outside off. The ball will do talking. That doesn't happen in Australia. It never has. So your batting must be very, very good. And unfortunately, England's batting, not just in this tour but previous tours, has been very bad. And that's the huge problem. Gaurav, that was my point.
Yes, I think we need to wrap the show. Thank you, Bharat sir. It was a pleasure talking to you. Sorry to interrupt. What you got here? Let me tell you this, because you live in Adelaide. My God, those redbacks. Those absolutely stink up the joint. I'm a proud Saka member,
But my God, we are no. Forget about England's batting lineup or England's bowling lineup. My God, we can't bowl out anybody. We can't bowl out anybody. What the Cricket Australia sent Mike Hussey there. He got blown off by the Saka. It's just unbelievable. How this team gets away with it. Stinking up the joint for 3-4 years. Can't even bowl out a damn team. I think they only bowled one team out last season. That was against Victoria in the last game. That's how embarrassing it was, for crying out loud. I have to sit there and watch that stuff, Bharat, because I actually do go to their Sheffield Shield games. I have to watch their stink up the joint, which is damn depressing. So can you give us any advice? Any advice to the Redbacks watching, please?
Well, I've been doing commentary for Redbacks games for the last 2 years, so
I know I've been hearing you.
I know it can get a little challenging at times, and I do feel for Dizzy Gillespie. I think he's done a great job since he's come in. Last year, of course, there was no off season. He just joined the team literally midway through a game, the first game at Karen Rolton. But this year he did put in the hard work, and it looked like things were getting slightly better. I think they've at least started producing some guys who are ready to put themselves out there and put in the hard yards. Like Henry Hunt, I'm a huge fan of. He's come of age, and I'm so glad that he's got his chance in Australia. Unfortunately, they didn't get to play that match or in Brisbane. But it's funny to see Bryce Street and Henry Hunt in a net, just bowling to each other, just wanging balls at each other. But I think it's a systemic issue. Like a lot with England, you can draw a lot of parallels there. It starts much at a more grassroots level, and I do a lot of junior level umpiring there. And the one thing that always stands out for me is there is talent in Adelaide or in the South system.
Yeah,
just that it's not coming through yet. I mean, they've had a few decent imports this year. Brendan Doggett, before he got injured, started well. Nathan McAndrew's done really, really well. So he's been that Ben Stokes like character for them. So I think there are some signs that this season is better than the last season, but again,
well, we're bowling out teams. That's a start. We're out bowling out teams. That's a start.
Exactly. I mean, Lloyd Pope has been that investment. It looks to be paying off to an extent. He still goes for a lot of runs, but at least he's getting better. Like, he's such a young spinner. I remember being at next door to the Karen Rolton Oval, like when they're playing their last warm-up game before the Shield season began. And I was on the phone with a friend, and I just said, man, I really do feel fear for Lloyd Pope. Where does he go? Here, because he was being smacked around by some of his teammates. And then in a space of 5 overs, while I was on the phone, he took some 6 wickets, and I was like, shit, I think I might have just jinxed Lloyd Pope into this dramatic turnaround in his career. And he started off well in the Shield, but it's not been easy. But I think we'll just have to be, unfortunately, I don't want to sound like one of those straddling the fence people, but we just have to be a little patient. Look, is maybe
the P word. We haven't won a title since '97, bro. My patience is all but out.
I know. I'll give you an example. Last year, if you remember, when they played New South Wales at the Adelaide Oval, and it was a pretty bold declaration by Travis Head.
Yes,
New South Wales chased it down. Moses Enriquez made 100.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and David Warner made 60 off 20. Yeah, I remember that damn well because I was there.
Yeah.
So
I was on commentary throughout the day, but especially for the last 2 hours. And I got a message from a friend of mine in Adelaide who used to play for the Redbacks, and he said, "Man, how long have you been here?" I said, "A few years." He said, "Yeah, stop sounding so disappointed on air. This is how it is. Get used to it." It's not easy, but. Look, I mean, I do have a lot of time and a lot of respect for Dizzy Gillespie, and like I said, he's really trying everything he can. So hopefully, I think you just have to invest in a lot of these young kids who just throw them into the deep end. And David Grant has improved from last year to this year. Sorry, Gaurav, we've gone deep into the Redbacks talk.
Yeah, so, it's all good. It was all going good to you two. Then this little kid from Adelaide comes up in starts talking and taking over the chat. So sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Already with David Grant, I remember speaking to some batters around the country last year, and they said He's good in his first couple of spells, but he tends to slow down. But this year he seems to have fixed that. He's like consistently at you. So it'll just take one or two of those performances to come back to back. And maybe at the right time of the season, which is like before the BBL break or before the break for the BBL. Hasn't happened again, but hopefully next year, later this year, next summer, I'll be on air and I will. Don't worry, I will bring you up. I'll say, Lucas, if you are listening to this, you're a happy man. I'm sure you're a happy man. That's
damn it. Trust me, I'll be listening. Damn it, I'll be watching. The day we win a game, hallelujah. Can we praise the Lord? Throw a parade, even if we don't win anything. Just throw a parade for us winning a game. But before you go, just a simple question: Port or Crows?
Oh my God! No! Don't put me on the spot here. Neither. I'm just going to support. I'll tell you why. So when I moved to Australia, I mean, I knew a little bit about footy. I started watching that a lot. So then I said I need to invest my energy into one team, right? So and I said, let's not go AFL, let's go SANFL. So Norwood Redlegs, there you go. So that's the team. I live in Norwood, not too far from that beautiful Norwood Oval. So I'm a card-holding member of the Redlegs. But if there was a team that I want to support at the AFL, I don't think I've reached that level of fandom. I still go for players. I was very happy to see Ben Brown do what he did with Melbourne this year. So I think it was the hair that attracted me to him. But now I appreciate what he does.
Your hair's looking good, right? You've got some long hair there, bro. So I think you're in elite company with the hair.
Thank you for that. But no, I think though different people have tried to get me on to teams. I remember interviewing Dylan Shield for a story on Alex Carey 2 years ago.
Oh wow!
And he said, you have to back Essendon. They are the future. But 2 years in, I'm not too convinced.
Alex Carey obviously played for the GWS Giants exactly. When Alex Carey was there. So before he moved to Adelaide. So in case Gaurav doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, he probably doesn't. But yeah, I just wanted to get out there. I think you answered that very well, very, very well, and you support your local SANFL team, which is fantastic for the SANFL. So we're very well answered. Very well answered.
Thank you so much, Lucas.
Okay.
Thank you, Bharat sir. It was a pleasure talking to you. We have really enjoyed the conversation with you. I know we have taken a long time, but you want to say something about the show?
No. It hasn't taken it hasn't felt like too long at all, which tells you a lot about how much I've enjoyed myself. Okay, like I said, it did take a long time for it to come about. You have asked me for a few times, and I've always said it'll happen for sure. I do apologize for that, but I'm happy that I've got time.
No, sir, don't apologize for that.
He reminds me every day, Bharat. Every day he reminds me. Thank God you're on here so we can. I don't have to put up with that no more.
I apologize for that, Lucas. I'm sorry you had to endure that, and I am completely to blame for that. But I finally did manage to pull it off. And yeah, I know I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me, guys, and for all the kind words that you've said in the last hour and a half.
Thank you so much for joining us. I've been real pleased to talk to you, especially about the Redbacks. It's good to speak to another South Australian that commentates on them and knows what they're about. So I'm not alone when I say they stink up the joint.
I never said that, just to clarify, okay. I never said that. But I just said, let's be patient. From Redbacks to the Redlegs and everything in between.
Yeah, we know what you mean.
Okay, guys, do like the video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Till then, we will meet some other time. Thank you, Bharat sir. Namaste, big namaste to you, and we will meet some other time. Till then, bye, guys.